I recently dealt with something no soldier should ever come home to. My house was taken, leased out by the HOA while I was still overseas, all because I left to serve my country. They claimed I abandoned the property. Funny thing is, their biggest mistake was thinking I'd come back quietly. Let me start from the beginning. I didn't even make it to the porch before I knew something was wrong. The grass was cut. That doesn't sound like a big deal unless you left for a combat zone with weeds knee-high and a busted sprinkler that chirped like a dying bird every third cycle. But now the hedges were trimmed, the sidewalk pressure washed. The whole place looked like it had just been listed on Zillow. There was even a welcome mat, a new one. Live, laugh, love. I stopped walking. That mat wasn't ours. Ours said, come back with a warrant. A cold pulse moved through my chest. Not panic, just data, sensory input. Something had been changed, without permission, without warning. Like finding your toothbrush moved half an inch to the left. Except this time, it was your entire house. Then I saw it, a red Tesla in the driveway, parked confidently like it belonged there, like it had always been there. Like the person driving it didn't just move in, they felt invited. That's when I heard the wind chimes. My wife hated wind chimes. So I walked up, quiet, measured. I reached for the doorbell and froze. Through the side window, I could see movement. Someone walking past the hall, barefoot, t-shirt, holding something, maybe a smoothie. Then the music kicked in. Jazz. Not the real kind, the playlist kind. Background noise for someone drinking cold brew and updating a travel blog. The door opened before I could even knock. He was in his early 30s. Flip-flops, aviators resting on his head, holding a banana strawberry protein blend in a reusable glass. Looked like someone who said namaste before arguing with baristas. "Can I help you?" he asked casually, like I was the mailman or a lost tourist. I stared at him, not because I was confused. Was he? Because I was calculating. I'd been dropped into firefights with less warning than this. "This is my house," I said slowly. He tilted his head, like a golden retriever. I don't think so, man." My hand went to my key ring. I pulled out the house key, the one I'd carried through 2 continents, 7 airports, and 1 IED blast. I slipped it in the lock. It didn't turn. "Dude," he said, stepping slightly back, "if you're looking for the leasing officer or whatever, you might want to call the HOA. We signed everything through them. Name's Zach, by the way." "Zach." I almost laughed. That's when the black SUV rolled up. No sirens, no lights, just silence and smug. Glossy letters across the side. Community Safety Enforcement. 2 guys stepped out in matching uniforms, khakis, maybe polos, tactical vests that probably hadn't seen action beyond the spill in the clubhouse kitchen. "Sir," one said, approaching me with fake authority, "we're going to need you to step away from the residence." "This is my house," I repeated, more force this time. They didn't blink. "The tenants have signed paperwork," the second said. "This is now an HOA-managed leasehold. You are trespassing." "Where's Karen?" I asked. They looked at each other, and like she had been summoned by the audacity of her own name, she appeared. Clipboard, beige visor sunglasses that could reflect regret if she ever felt any. "Oh," she said, smiling like she'd been rehearsing it. "You're early." "Excuse me, you weren't scheduled to return until Q4. That's what your wife's last message said." "I wasn't scheduled, like a quarterly report. I was deployed." Karen didn't miss a beat. "And we thank you for your service, but under Bylaw 14C, homes left unoccupied for over 90 days without documented maintenance or direct contact are subject to board reassignment." "Reassignment?" I asked. She nodded towards Zach, still sipping his smoothie behind the safety of my foyer. "We placed the tenant temporarily, just to ensure the property remained in circulation." "You mean you rented out my home?" "We protected the community. It's not personal." "Did you receive my deployment waiver?" I asked. She hesitated, just a twitch. Then the smile returned. "Must have been a clerical error. Regardless, you'll have a chance to contest the board's actions at the next monthly meeting." "Let me get this straight," I said, voice low. "You changed my locks, leased my house, and filled it with strangers all while I was in another country serving this one." She shrugged. "We followed procedure." "You didn't follow the law." "Then I'm sure you'll have no trouble proving that. But until then," she glanced at the guards, "please leave the property." They stepped closer, not aggressive, just enough pressure to see what I do. I looked past them, Through the open door, I saw my wife's framed deployment photo still hanging near the kitchen. They hadn't even taken it down. Zach raised a smoothie and waved. That's when I felt it. The key in my palm digging into my skin. My hand clenched. I could have snapped it in two. Instead, I dropped it back into my pocket. Turned slowly, walked to the curb, sat in my rental car, eyes forward, not defeated, calculating. I pulled out my phone. Not a lawyer, not yet. I scrolled until I found a number I hadn't used since the last time someone tried to make me feel powerless. Texted one word, ready. The response came in 2 seconds flat. Always. I wasn't calling for help. I was calling for backup. The smell of motel carpet never really leaves you. It's like sadness soaked into polyester, and it clings. That's what I noticed first when I woke up the next morning. That and the fact that my boots were still at the foot of the bed, lined up like I was waiting for the next mission brief. Like I couldn't fully stand down because I hadn't fully stood down. Coffee? My wife asked softly. I nodded. The kids were still asleep. At least I hoped they were. Our son had barely spoken since we got booted off our own sidewalk. His hoodie was his armor now. He sat with it up like he was under siege, and honestly, he wasn't wrong. While they rested, I worked. Laptop open, eyes red-shot, pages of HOA bylaws, zoning codes, and board meeting notes flying across the screen. And then I found it, buried in a draft update, Revision D, Community Vitality Addendum, Bylaw 14C, Section 3. Properties deemed non-contributive to visual or environmental health standards for a period exceeding 90 days may be reassigned to provisional board control pending occupancy. Legal ease, but it translated to, if we don't like how your yard looks and you're not here to stop us, we take your house. And here's the kicker. The bylaw backdated, filed after I'd left, approved during what they called an emergency proxy quorum. No public notice, no door-to-door, no transparency. It was signed by Karen. Of course it was. I scrolled through the meeting minutes, found a line, in her handwriting, this should help solve the Spruce Lane issue. That was me. I wasn't a person to her, I was an issue. I closed the laptop, walked outside to get some air, tried to feel normal. Didn't work. And then from across the parking lot, I saw it. One of the fake HOA guards, the younger one from yesterday, standing next to a pickup laughing on the phone. I moved closer. Quiet, slow. He didn't see me, just kept talking. Yeah, the guy showed up early, freaked out. I thought he was going to go full Rambo. Pause. Nah, Karen handled it. Said he checked out of the neighborhood long before he ever left. I froze. That was personal. That was calculated. He turned, saw me. I didn't blink. You stalking us now? He said, suddenly nervous. I walked up close enough to see the sweat start forming at his collar. You tell Karen that if she's going to quote me, she should try saying it to my face. He opened his mouth, but I was already walking away. Later that day, we took a drive by the house. My son wanted to see his room. We didn't go inside, we didn't even stop the car. But when we slowed, he pressed his face to the window. His room had been painted. The posters were gone. There was a little dog bed where his telescope used to be. Is it still our house? He asked quietly. I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't lie. Instead, I said nothing. That night in the motel, my wife found me staring at the laptop again. You okay? She asked. I shook my head. I've had insurgents lie to my face. I've had generals look me in the eye and feed me false intel. But I never thought it'd be a clipboard in a neighborhood newsletter that got me. She sat next to me. What do? We build the file, I said. We track every vote, every signature, every dollar. And then I stared at the screen. We take back what's ours. The next morning, I returned to the HOA office. This time I brought a GoPro, clipped it to my shirt, walked in like I was there to buy a condo. Karen was inside, chatting with a realtor. I didn't say a word, just walked to the community bulletin board. There it was, a printed copy of Bylaw 14C, dated, signed, stamped. I snapped the photo, then I leaned close and whispered, you should be careful who you write laws for. Karen's smile twitched. She opened their mouth, but before she could respond, another person entered the office. Mrs. Delaney, the widow from the corner lot. She saw me, paused, then walked up to Karen and said, you did get his deployment notice, didn't you? Karen's smile vanished. You told me you had it on file, Mrs. Delaney added, voice louder now. I remember. I asked you about it. You said he's not coming back soon enough to matter. The silence was volcanic. Karen didn't reply. I turned and walked out. She didn't know it yet, but that one sentence just turned a civil war into a court case. There's a different kind of silence in a motel room. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums. The kind that thickens around you like the air itself is judging you. My son slept under a pile of blankets like he was trying to hide from the world. My wife stared at the ceiling like it owed her answers. And me? I sat in the motel chair, in uniform pants, a t-shirt that still smelled like aircraft fuel, one boot on, one off, laptop open, pages pulled up, and in the corner of the screen like a parasite, the HOA charter. I don't remember opening it, but there it was, still mocking me, still legal. A notice had popped up earlier. Cease and desist. Issued. Unauthorized surveillance. Surveillance? I sat down, took off my boots, rubbed the back of my neck. They threw out his bookshelf. She didn't speak. They tossed it like garbage. She nodded slowly and then said, "So what's the plan?" I looked at her, and for the first time in days, maybe weeks, I gave her the real answer. I'm calling in the team. She didn't flinch. Instead, she poured us both coffee. "They'll need rooms," she said, "and space to stage. I'll handle it." She smiled, and I realized something. She wasn't scared. She was ready. The next morning, I hit the thread muster at 1800, staging at the far lot behind Shell Station. One reply, then another, a dozen. Even the guys who hadn't spoken in years replied with the same word: copy. This wasn't a reunion, it was an operation, and by sundown, we were taking the first house back. I always thought reunions were supposed to feel warm. This one didn't. This one felt like the last calm breath before a detonation. They started arriving around 0400 hours, silent, no high fives, no cheers, just handshakes, nods, and eyes that had seen too much. And they all brought one thing: purpose. Ramos was first. Still huge, still terrifying, still talking like a drill instructor crossed with a linebacker. "Where's the problem?" he asked. "You're standing on it." We met at the Shell Station lot. Too public for real planning, just enough for staging. From there, we moved into the real war room, a shuttered vape shop across from the neighborhood. I'd cleared it in advance, rented it under an LLC. Yates unrolled the sat map. Bowen set up routers. Davis, still calm as death, unloaded a duffel bag that made TSA agents cry in their sleep. "You brought the noise?" I asked him. "Always," he said. But this wasn't joy. This was justice. I dropped the map marker onto the printed neighborhood grid. "This is Alpha," I said. Primary objective, house. Secondary, HOA office across the block. But I want that untouched, unless absolutely necessary. "You think she's hiding something there?" Ramos asked. "Probably, but our priority is visibility. Proof. Presence. Control the narrative." Yates scanned the layout. "She got cams, front porch, back fence, cloud storage." "I can reroute," Bowen said, "but you'll lose real-time feedback." "I don't need real-time. I need her off balance." I heard the door creak behind us, turned, and there stood Reed. He hadn't spoken to me in years, not after the tribunal. He walked in, set down a go bag, and stared me down. "Before we start," he said, "you need to answer one question. Ask. This isn't just revenge, right?" "No." "You sure?" I didn't blink. "It's a homecoming." He studied me, then nodded once. That's all I needed. We prepped loadouts. Civilian dress. No plaids, no insignia, not real ones. We weren't here to fight, we were here to reclaim. But something kept nagging at me. That voice from '03, the memory. Kandahar, the man I couldn't save. I felt the pressure behind my eyes. Bowen noticed, pulled me aside. "You good?" "No. You need to be. We're walking the line. One wrong step and it's federal." "I know. I'm not worried about her," he said. "I'm worried about you." Halfway through the layout brief, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no name. I answered. Silence. Then, "You were trespassing." "Karen, you're bluffing," I said. "Am I?"
Because I just filed an injunction with Judge Halverson. You know the one, your old neighbor? His daughter sits on the HOA board now. You're scared. No, she said coolly. I'm connected. And I'm patient. Go ahead, bring your little army buddies. I'll be waiting with paperwork. The line went dead. I turned to the team. She knows. Ramos stepped up. Then we do this cleaner, smarter. We've got less than 48 hours, I said. She's trying to legally flip the house, transfer title under fake abandonment clauses. Yates grunted. She bribed the clerk? No. She married his cousin. Silence. Then Davis from the corner. So what's the move? I walked to the corner of the room, pulled out something I hadn't shown them. A box wrapped in the old flag we kept after deployment. Inside, my folded uniform. I held it up. She disrespected this. I didn't say me. I didn't say us. I said this. Because that's what got us here. Not pettiness, not revenge, but the line she crossed. Reed stepped forward, laid his hand on the uniform and said what we were all thinking. Then let's take it back, with honor. We broke the team into pairs. Davis and Ramos, decoy and containment. Bowen and Yates, digital infiltration. Reed and I, point entry and narrative control. We'd show up like neighbors, friendly, smiling, with hidden cams, mics, recorded handoffs. Every step legal, but every word a blade. Before we broke, I looked at each of them in the eye. Karen thinks this is a game. She thinks you're here to scare her. She's wrong. You're here to remind her. Some people still protect with stares. They nodded, silent, furious, focused. But at 600 sharp, it wasn't Karen who opened the door. It was a sheriff. And he had our names on a list. 0600 hours. Operation Homecoming. That was a go. We moved in civilian pairs. No tactical gear, just backpacks and cameras. Everything legal. Everything documented. I'd never seen the team look more dangerous. Not because of what we carried, but because of what we left behind. No weapons, just truth. But truth isn't bulletproof. We were halfway down the block when the first squad car appeared. No lights, no sirens. It pulled up slow, intentional, like a hunter circling prey that doesn't know it's already caught. Then came the second car. Different model, no markings. But when Ramos squinted at the tires, he muttered, "County Sheriff's Office. Look at the wear pattern." I nodded. "Positions," I said. The team split, not to retreat, but to witness. Every man pulled out a camera and waited. The doors open and out stepped Sheriff Blaine. Sunglasses, clipboard, neutral expression, almost too calm. Behind him, Deputy Nunez, a rookie, hand twitching near his belt. Trigger happy or nervous? Probably both. "Gentlemen," Blaine said, walking toward me like a man arriving to inspect pest control. "You want to tell me why 6 military-age males are coordinating outside our residential home at dawn?" I raised both hands, casually. No weapons, no threats. We're reclaiming property. Legally. Karen's SUV pulled up behind them, right on cue. She got out like she was stepping onto a stage. Neutral colors, manicured hands holding a thermos like a champagne flute. "You're trespassing," she said. "This is harassment." I ignored her, addressed Blaine directly. "You've seen the deed." "I've seen what she filed," he said. "Emergency property control transfer based on HOA abandonment clause." "Which is fake." "That's not my call." He nodded toward his deputy. And that's when Nunez reached for his cuffs, and that's when Davis stepped in. Fast. Calm. Just enough. "Sir, any physical contact without a formal arrest will be interpreted as excessive force. We're recording under state civil code." Nunez froze. Blaine paused. "Back off, Deputy Nunez." Did, but barely. Karen smiled wider. "You see? You're not in uniform. Now you're just angry men trespassing." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked toward her, close enough to smell her perfume. Then I whispered, "You really filed an abandonment clause after forging the timestamp on my deployment papers?" She flinched just for a second, then smiled again. "Prove it." I stepped back, tapped my earpiece. "Bowen now." across the street, Bowen sent the signal. We weren't just filming, we were streaming to a private YouTube link. Public enough to count, private enough to kill at will. Footage from Karen's HOA meeting, her voice on tape saying, "He's not coming back. And if he does, we'll make it so it's not his home anymore." Sheriff Blaine's jaw twitched. I handed him the flash drive. There's more. Property records tampered. Meeting minutes check the IP address edits. On the charter, they all route to her house. Blaine didn't speak. Karen did. Slander. You're all just thugs with internet access. But I saw it. Her hand. It was shaking. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, again. I answered, and a voice, female, clipped, calm, said, "You are about to be served." What? Federal injunction, IRS tax fraud investigation, tied to illegal rental income declared under falsified HOA filings. I blinked. "Who are you?" She didn't say. She just ended the call. I looked up. Karen was dialing her phone, smiling like she just landed her final blow. I stepped away from the group, heart pounding. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about who was backing her. Old judges, dirty clerks, and now possibly federal allies. Ramos approached. "You all right?" "No," I said. "I've seen that look before." He said, "Afghanistan. Market blast. We lost comms. Civilians screaming. You still got us out." I met his eyes. "You're not out of this." He grinned. "Didn't say I wanted out. Just said I've seen that look."
Suddenly, every worst-case scenario came rushing in at once. If the city flagged the complaint, my house would be marked for inspection. If the inspection failed, it could be condemned. If the condemnation held, I'd lose the right to reside on the property, pending court review, which meant eviction again. And if the Army saw that, it wouldn't just be a PR nightmare, it'd be a security liability. Worst case, I'd get slapped with an internal disciplinary review, labeled a community risk, maybe even dishonorably discharged for bringing discredit upon the service. All from one lie written from a jail cell. And this time, it wasn't about winning anymore. This was existence. I sat down, the weight hit different. I'd fought so long I forgot what fear felt like. Real fear. The kind that makes your stomach cramp and your fingers itch, like you're supposed to be doing something. But what? Karen was in jail. Monroe was indicted. The HOA had collapsed, so how was she still swinging? Then I realized this wasn't just her. She had help. Bowen pulled records like a machine, scoured submission timestamps, IP logs, and there it was. The complaint had been uploaded not through the city's public web portal, but through a secure legal channel, one that required firm verification. A small firm based out of a strip mall 2 counties over. Guess who owned the building? Monroe's nephew. And just like that, the final piece clicked. Karen wasn't making a last stand. She was part of a fallback plan. The rats were still moving inside the walls. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I did what soldiers do when the first wave fails and the enemy repositions. I regrouped and I planned a counter-offensive. First, I built a file, evidence of tampering, video from the backyard. Every training session was either rescue drills with Max or controlled mobility work cleared through veteran charities. Noise logs, security footage, signed neighbor waivers. I even dug up an old HOA community newsletter from 2 years ago, where Karen herself praised my service dog program and community outreach efforts for veterans. Her words in ink, on record, now being used to frame me. Second, I called in a favor, a friend from Jay, a former prosecutor. Clean record, quiet demeanor, shark for blood under the surface. "I need this buried," I said. "You mean handled?" "No," I replied, "buried, legally. So deep even Karen's ghost can't find it." He paused, then asked for my address. The inspection came 2 days later. Middle-aged guy, looked like someone's uncle who moonlighted as a referee. "Just need to take a look around," he said. "Of course," I said, calm as I could manage. Ramos, Bowen, and I walked them through the backyard. The setup was minimal. Sandbox area, locked storage, noise dampeners on all gates. Max performed a command test, obedient, precise, never left the handler's side. The inspector jotted notes. "You run this like a training facility," he said. "We are a training facility," I replied. He raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For coming home and not breaking," I said simply. He nodded once, didn't say another word. 3 hours later, we got the ruling. Complaint dismissed. City found the submission incomplete, unverified, and retaliatory in nature. They flagged Karen's name, launched a fraud inquiry. I sat back in my chair, finally letting the air out of my lungs. And then the email came in. Subject: HOA Asset Redistribution Review. Inside, a forwarded request from the County Housing Board. Karen had used HOA funds meant for legal upkeep and neighborhood maintenance, to pay her legal team, and now the board wanted it back from her, personally. That's what finally broke her. Not the arrest, not the exposure, not even the humiliation. It was the debt. You take someone's illusion of power, they'll scream. You take their money, they'll fold. A week later, her lawyer filed a motion to withdraw. Karen stood in court alone, hair unwashed, skin pale. I didn't go. I didn't need to. Because some enemies aren't worth watching fall. Some battles you win by walking away and letting the world finish them for you. I came home that evening and stood in my driveway. The porch light clicked on. Mox barked once and padded toward the gate. Ramos handed me a beer and said, "So now what?" I smiled. Now we make this place a home again. And I meant it. Until I opened the mailbox. Inside, another envelope. Smaller, heavier. One word written across the top in block letters. Appeal. Inside, a handwritten note. No punctuation, no return address. Just a sentence. You didn't win. You just got lucky. And taped to the back of the page, a key. Not mine. Old, rusty, and labeled in faded Sharpie. Unit 13. Which didn't exist. Not in this subdivision, not on any HOA record, not in any blueprint we'd ever seen. What the hell was Karen trying to tell me? Was it a threat, a bluff, or something worse? Another move on a board I thought we'd already burned to ash. Because if that key opened what I thought it did, this war wasn't over. It hadn't even started yet. I didn't sleep the night I found the key, didn't talk about it either. Not to Ramos, not to Bowen, not even to Max, because I knew what it meant. Karen wasn't done. She was baiting me. One last mind game, one final riddle. So I played along. Unit 13 didn't exist on any current map, but buried in a 14-year-old blueprint from the county archive, there it was. A storm shelter, cemented lined, hidden beneath the foundation of a raised model home, sealed, abandoned, and forgotten but except for Karen. She used to sit on the HOA board. She signed the closure order herself. Now she wanted me to open it. So I did. Ramos and I went in clean, just gloves, bolt cutters, and a crowbar. The hatch gave a metallic groan. The air smelled like copper and gilt. Inside were 4 crates, a rusted desk, and a single shoebox labeled "Board Assets Do Not Destroy." Inside everything: financial ledgers, forged voting tallies, surveillance logs, HOA funds rerouted to personal accounts, photos of every illegal renter they stuffed into my house, and dozens of email printouts from Karen bragging. One dated 2 weeks before I returned home. Read, "I don't care if he's active duty. He left. That makes him fair game." I boxed it all, drove to the state attorney's office, walked straight past reception, and laid it on the counter. "Tell them it's time." The arrest came 48 hours later. Karen was on house release, ankle monitor still parading around like she'd beaten the system. When they cuffed her again, she tried to smile, even when the news vans rolled up. Even when they read the new charges, but that smile faded when she saw me standing across the street. I didn't wave, didn't flinch. She locked eyes with me and, for the first time I saw it, doubt. Then something worse, fear. Court took a week. Her lawyer withdrew. She tried to represent herself. Bad move. The state shredded her line by line. HOA funds, false liens, racial profiling, and fines targeting service families with forged complaints. They found 4 more cases like mine. She didn't just steal my house. She built an empire on screwing over people who couldn't fight back. But this time she picked the wrong soldier. Sentencing was swift. Guilty. All counts. 8 years minimum, civil restitution pending. They seized her car, her account, and her condo publicly, and the HOA disbanded. Assets redistributed. Every homeowner in the community got a payout, including me. A month later, I sat on the porch. The grass was wild again. The porch light buzzed. Moxley sprawled under the steps, snoring. Ramos had gone back to school. Bowen took a contracting job overseas. The house was quiet for the first time in years. I was quiet. No scans, no drills, just breathe. Then the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Delaney. The neighborhood stood up for Josh all those weeks ago. She brought cookies and a folded envelope. Found this in my mailbox, think it's yours. Inside, a check from the state fund and a handwritten note. Thank you for showing us we don't have to be afraid of them anymore. I closed my eyes. That's when it finally hit me. We didn't just win, we changed the rules. Mox stirred, tail wagging. I scratched behind his ears and whispered, "We're good now, buddy." Because for once, we were. There are 1,000 ways to serve your country. Some do it with boots on the ground. Others, they fight from their porch, against a clipboard, a smirk, and the kind of evil that hides behind bylaws. But in the end, justice is louder than any HOA notice.